I want to talk a little bit about, because this whole thing with George Floyd obviously came right in the middle of a pandemic that we're dealing with, where African Americans are disproportionately affected from a health standpoint. Bishop, I know you've done a lot of work in dealing with access to health. Can you talk a little bit about, if you don't mind, what impact do you think that has had on everything we're all feeling right now? Just how really we realize in how many areas that we are disadvantaged as a people.
Well, I mean, it became obvious so quick. One of the reasons I ended up aggressively going toward the governor about testing in our communities, along with Dr. Horace Smith and Dr. Brazier, why I insisted there needed to be some representation from our community in those sessions that were every day about the state of COVID, because our community needs to see our community that they are accustomed to, that they live with, that they function with, on a normal basis in the process. We've seen all kinds in Marion, as I shared yesterday. This is the first time at 31 years of pastoring that I've ever had to stand in a grave in the cemetery and literally do a short funeral for a mom and dad who were pastor and his wife at the same time, while the kids stood around me. This was incredible. So there's a whole lot of death that happened so quick. There's separation anxiety that's going on with a lot of people because they're not able to see their loved ones as they're going through transitional times. There are those who are talking about having services later to try to give honor to people who they know who gave a lifetime of service to community, who ends up getting 5-10 minutes of celebration as they leave this world. And so it's a lot of healing that have to take place, a lot of therapy, a lot of answers that's going to have to be given. And this is what we use, I guess, we have to have for us is the church and our faith and our hope that allows us to come together and blend at this time. I mean, we're stuck on this thing is that when we're more and greater than part, the only thing that we can be family. And COVID has made us begin to become family. We all have to look out as well in some instances for each other. That's the place we are today.
Okay, now I want to shift a little bit, Melinda, because I know you deal so much with small business, and COVID obviously is disproportionately affected, I don't know if it's disproportionate, I haven't seen the numbers, I shouldn't say that, but definitely small businesses are greatly affected. And this PPP program, so many people who did not have relationships with banks got left out and did not have access to the capital that was designed to help save the small businesses. How are you able to, or what should people be doing to rectify some of those gaps that we see? The relationship with the banks, the system was set up where you had to go through a bank, where people don't have access to banks, don't have relationship with banks.
Not only access to the banks or have a relationship, one of the things that Chatham Business Association, Chicago League, and a lot of the organizations promote is that every business has to have a specific growth and development plan. You cannot do that without the banks, without an attorney. Not only access to a relationship with them. Part of the problem was access to technology. The only way to apply for those loans was to be able to do it online. And we have given reports and taken data from the small businesses where even in Chicago, there's a broadband, there's lack of broadband access, affordable access. So again, as we talk about legislative and policy issues, we have to work with the carriers and hold them legislatively accountable for providing that access so that when these pandemics hit, we're still engaged. And the other thing is that is why that capacity building is important, because you want to make sure as a business that part of your growth plan includes being a part of the entire U.S. economy and operating businesses. You want to have a diversification of business income streams. So that includes local as well as international, as well as throughout the country of the United States. You can't do that without technology, access to it, the banking relationships and things like that. So that is why it's important that, again, we have these opportunities. I find Black businesses work best when technical assistance and contract opportunities meet, and there's some guidance from those of us in the organizations to help them to get through it and grow larger and larger, to do the other things that we need them to be politically active, and as John mentioned earlier, to back the causes and movements, because there is a financial component to it, that if you don't have money, you can't be successful to get things done.
Okay, I am so thankful we have leaders like all of you that are there and committed to trying to make change, bring access to opportunity, access to capital, access to healthcare to our communities. They're part of the reason why we're having this as well is to reach out to our brothers and sisters of all races and people who live all over the area of Chicago to see, because there are people who want to help, but maybe just don't know how. So if you could give advice to others out there of all races, the people of wonderful will and love and spirit and grace that want to help, what advice would you give them as a way that they can be most impactful for the African American community that's hurting so much right now? John, I'm going to start with you.
Well, I think those of you that are out there that are working corporate America or working in a nonprofit, you're in charge. You have the ability to make decisions of what organization your firm works with. And I think that is just really critically important, that you can decide, are you advertising on Black radio like WVON? Are you advertising in Black publications? Are you using Black law firms, accounting firms, consulting firms? All the different things that we do in our community. We want to make sure that you are having an opportunity to push the right agenda, force the right agenda. Because too often we sit quietly by when we're in these leadership roles. So you're either white or you're Black. Make sure that your institution is buying from Black organizations, Black professionals, and we can all grow together and help this wealth gap get solved in our country.
Bishop, what advice would you give?
Can I just share something that happened in this that has its own uniqueness attached to it? The groups, segments of the white church that had relationship with DC had clearly put into this PPP process faith and faith-based organizations. That never happened before at this particular level. And so when you talk about PPP, one of my obligations was right from the beginning was to get to my 5 states and to counsel with that and show them how to do emergency in economic injury as well as PPP, so they can actually keep churches afloat. This is the first time that we've been able to have that transition. I got the information from a white brother, pastor, who called me and said, "You're over, pastor. You need to know this." While I was yet coming down right at the beginning of March. Yeah, and I'm so going to give you all the keys to it right at the beginning. And when he did that, it allowed me to send it all across the country to lots of churches, hundreds of churches. And that kind of togetherness, that is really what is bonding the faith community in a different kind of way than it has been in the past. We've had our challenges because we still look at, Sunday as being that most segregated moment during the week. But at the same time, this was a great opening for a lot of churches to get benefits they never have had before. And most people don't think about PPP and the church.
Right.
But actually, PPP at the church has allowed a whole lot of churches to remain fundamentally sound during as they prepare. Now our job is to do the education for telling people how to handle the end of it correctly, so that there's not other damage that comes to the community.
I want to push. I mean, I want to follow up a little bit with you, Bishop. What other ways? And so you've outlined a way that you received help, which I didn't even think about churches with PPP. So that's an interesting element. Are there other ways too that, whether it's calling your, pushing your influence with your legislator, that other white and brown and other folks can have an impact to help us in the community?
Sure. Well, so also what's happened here, a lot of and we have to tell the truth about some of this. A lot of the challenges that happened during the march with some of the insurgents were not all white people. Some white people who were against really our community. There were some churches and pastors who we asked to join us in marching, join us in standing, join us in celebrating the moment and letting the world know that we stand together because we have to have change. And that is something that is still growing across the country. I have not heard, this is the first time that I've heard Caucasian ministry leaders talk about racism at this level and speak about their how much they missed it and then realize they were missing it until a moment like that. I'm like, we've been here all along, and every time we say something about it, it's like, oh, you're just overboard, but at this particular point, I think people are beginning to see it at a certain level now. And we hopefully will see some great, not only changes in dialogue, but changes in behavior. And that's happening in our community. I mean, we had a march this last week, not just in Oakland, but up in the part of Oakland and Evergreen, but the part up at the top there where, we generally don't even get a chance to move into. So there's some changes that's happening in the midst of it, and there was both black and white in that meeting.
You do feel there's a sense of change, and is it just a different way this time feels? And so, Melinda, I'm gonna let you respond to that. What advice would you give to anyone out there of goodwill that wants to try to help in this moment?
So again, what we do understand is that as larger institutions may not understand diversity, how to not just tolerate it, but to incorporate it and adopt it. So what I would say is reach out to those of us who know how to do it, know the community. We can help you be innovative. We can help you leverage a lot of the policies that aren't on the books, as well as create new books. There are companies, I know CSX, persons, they have reached out to me personally to make sure that as they work on large projects, that they are not keeping their eye off the ball on making sure that there is some intergenerational wealth created for some of the businesses and that they participate on the project. So again, we don't expect you to know everything, but reach out to those of us that do. We will help you to help folks participate economically. I can tell you, Marion, there were a lot of the looters, a lot of them were young women that I think look like they may be our children at some point. I think a better conversation would have been, let me offer you a job with economic value at X amount. And that was not it wasn't a tool I could use. When we had business owners, like in our organizations, you can actually call, as John mentioned earlier, John Johnson or someone and make that commitment and help them along the way. So that's important. That was the advice I would give.
And I hope that outreach comes. I do hope the conversations continue and we do, work to really try to get past where we are, because there is a lot of work that needs to be done. Believe it or not, we are getting close to our close. It's gone so fast. And I want to give each of you an opportunity to sort of round out your thoughts, particularly because the theme here is the path forward and how we can get past where we are. And really one thing that I would love to see as an African-American woman who is, I think all African-Americans at one time or another, deal with, think about, marinate on why we are where we are, how we can move forward as a people and get beyond sort of the marginalization that we have historically suffered and continue to suffer. I mean, there's no question about it. We continue to suffer. So I think it is incumbent upon the people like you who are leaders to set the charge. So the path forward for everybody. I know you've talked a little bit about advice for our non-Black folks out there, but even to our young people, the path forward, and wrapping up your thoughts, what do you say to them? Where do we go from here? How can they move the needle themselves? Let me start with you, Melinda.
So, working with young folks is a passion of ours. NBC was kind enough to highlight a program where we use youth to work with small businesses. These are innovative, talented people that it is up to us as leaders to make sure that we nurture that, we nurture the entrepreneurial spirit in them so that they don't feel the need to seek revenge and rise up and participate in activities, that they feel self-sufficient and that they have hope.
That's true. I hope you keep that going. That's a beautiful initiative. Bishop?
Well, what I have in mind is just two words: togetherness and finishing. And in the context of togetherness, I'm convinced that when we live together, stick together, and work together, we'll automatically have to occupy together, and that's essential for our success in our future. If we stick together, we can turn around and finish. And the whole deal with finishing is that you don't win because you've gotten in the race. You only win because you experienced the finish line. And that's about finishing. If we just finish together, we'll all be better for it.
John?
I would agree with what the bishop just said. One of the key things is for all of us as African Americans, we have to fight together, look out for each other. The conference we do every year for African American directors, there we try to inspire all of us that if we're in the boardroom, we're in the leadership role, we got to look out for each other, make sure the civil rights agenda is truly being explored and we're making progress for our community and our people. We need to be able to get the next generation to be thinking the same way. When they come out of school, come out of business school, get started, I have to understand that if we don't fight for each other, we'll continue to go backwards. And the last message I would give to white Americans is that Dr. King once said that, progressive whites often deplore prejudice, but accept and ignore economic injustice. And we have to make sure that we try to tell our white brothers and sisters that they can't just continue to use their friends and family and their relationships that they grew up with to do business with. They have to include us in everything and understand the economic injustice that's still there that has such an impact on the crisis we're facing today in this country.
I do think it really does go back to the economic injustice because it's sort of at the root of all things. We really do we need to be at the table. And so often we're not even in the room. So I do hope that you all will continue your charge. I'm so thankful for you and your presence in the community and for all of the work that you do. And I thank you for taking time out on this Tuesday evening when it's pouring outside. I thank you so much for taking the time to take part in this discussion. And I hope that people listening got as much out of it as I did. Thank you so much and have a fantastic evening. And please do stay safe. God bless you.
Thank you.
Thank you.